In the past decade, I've read more than 30 personal finance books, so you don't have to. And today I'm going to summarize all the things that are going to make you rich, happy, and financially free in whatever timeline you decide for yourself. So if you're interested in gaining financial freedom, then keep on watching. Before we dive in, hi, my name is Francesca. I'm a vice president at a multinational company, and in here I talk about personal finance, career, self-development, and anything in between. So if you're interested, keep on watching. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, I do have a personal finance coaching program. I'm working with 5 and more people right now. So if that's something that you'd like to do, spend some one-on-one time with me and get one-on-one help, then I'll drop the link below to my Calendly. You can book a session with me and we can take it from there. So pretty much the first lesson that any personal finance book will tell you is that you get rich by owning, not by working for someone else. And this is something that it's so hard to understand for most people because our corporate society really pushes us towards the safe path of working for someone else, having a salary, being employed. Now, I'm not saying that entrepreneurship is necessarily the only mean to owning. I don't think that is the only way, but of course, that's the most direct way, and it's the way in which people tend to get richer or have the possibility to get the highest gains. However, at the same time, that same principle of owning applies to multiple things. You can also own, for example, a rental company or rental investment property that pays you money and pays back your mortgage, for example, with which you've purchased that property. Or you can own the stock market. That's already a part of ownership. And people often forget that investing in the stock market means having tiny little ownership pieces of the companies that comprise the stock market. So that is already a form of ownership. But yes, ultimately, the ultimate way of ownership is to own what you work for, own the thing that you're building and that makes you money, because that's where you have the most freedom, you have the highest motivation, you have the highest margins, and the highest upside, which is seemingly infinite. Now, this is something, of course, I don't live as I preach. I'm currently a full-time employee, and I definitely see a lot of benefits in being a full-time employee, right? So I'm not completely saying, oh my God, quit your job, set up a side hustle and whatever. But what I am saying is know that ideally you will want to, at one point, to own your own income and start building towards that, perhaps while still enjoying the positives of being a salaried employee, which is the safety, the security, the not having the headache of knowing when the next paycheck will come. So enjoy both whilst knowing that true wealth will come from owning the source of income that you produce. The second effective point is that your savings rate matter more than how much money you make, and how much you're able to control your fixed expenses is going to be extremely more important and more crucial in determining when you reach financial freedom. I've said this time and time again, but it's infinitely more important and better if you're able to save 50% of a 40K salary as opposed to save 10% of a 60K salary or 80K salary. So it's more about keeping in track your lifestyle creep and knowing what your savings rate percentage is, because this is the thing that is going to drive you closer to financial independence. You don't want to be the person that earns 100+K but has a lifestyle that costs them 95K per year and so only has left 5K per year to pay themselves first. You don't want to be that person. And now when it comes to investing, almost every personal finance book screams the same thing, which is automate the boring stuff, otherwise it will not happen. Yes, there are people that are more inclined to think about personal finance and because they enjoy the topic, me one of them, right? So I like to spend a few hours per week on my finances, in smartening up, thinking about alternatives, way to invest, etc. But at the same time, still 80% of my portfolio is in boring global ETFs. So SWDA, XMMS, if you want to know the exact tickers. And that amount that goes to that pot every month is automatically sent out first of the month when my paycheck hits the day before. And I don't have to think about it. It's there, the allocations are there, and it happens every single time. So this is something that I highly encourage everyone that starts investing to do. And for most people, that might even mean all they have to do, right? Because they don't want to spend that extra amount of time reading into trends, smartening up, looking at market conditions, etc. For most people, just doing the boring stuff, automating it and sticking it out in letting the market do its magic is going to be enough. The next point, which almost again every single book says, and we kind of touched on it in the previous point, was avoid lifestyle creep as the plague. And lifestyle creep, for those of you who don't know, is basically the moment you start earning more, you start spending more. So in effect, in actuality, you're never actually seeing more money because you're not allowing for your lifestyle to stay the same, and therefore enjoying the additional gains you may be making from your job. And now this is something that is very easy to do, because you look around, especially if you live in a global city like London, where there's millions and millions of people that are seemingly doing better than you, buying cooler things, going on amazing trips. It's very easy to fall in that trap. And the worst thing that people do is they know they'll get a raise, they upgrade their flats immediately, and there's like an extra £400 a month that goes away, and often that is even more than what the raise actually brings them in terms of net amount of money that they get in the bank account every month. So they're actually earning less than what they were making before the raise because of lifestyle increase. And honestly, the thing that works for me in that case is just reminding myself of why I'm doing this, why I'm working. I'm working because I want to build a financially free life for myself, and me upgrading my lifestyle every single time I get a raise actively goes against what I'm trying to reach and what future Francesca will want for current day, today's Francesca. So this is enough for me, and I think for you, definitely understand what are the categories in which you are able and willing to, let's say, spend a little bit more if lifestyle increase, if you do get a raise, and what are the things that instead you don't feel the need to increase what you're spending on. And often I always recommend keeping, especially in track, the big expenses, the big fixed expenses, because they are the things that really fuck you up if you get them wrong. So rent, car payments for people that have cars, even buying a house that you can't actually afford, like buying too much house. How many times do we hear this? Well, that means people getting into mortgages that are so big and so huge and they're never going to be able to pay them off just because on paper they can't afford them, based on the salary. So really second guess when it comes to these bigger expenses, and keep lifestyle expenses at bay like plague. The next 2 points I'm gonna bundle together, and I'm not gonna spend too much time because I say this all the damn time, but they are: stop trying to beat the market and cherry pick, which stocks. Just invest in the whole damn market. And again, this is true for most people. Now, the way that I approach my investments is, as I said, I have 80% of my portfolio at the moment. At least I may up that up to maybe a 70 or even a 60%, so that increase that. But at the moment, it's 80% of my portfolio in boring stuff, and then 20% I play around, yes, trying to beat the market, but I don't do that by following, let's say, the latest trend, the latest thing that I don't understand. I do that by trying to understand market conditions, trying to understand where we are now in the economic cycle, stagnation, deflation, inflation, stagflation, all of that, and trying to anticipate where we might go there, next, based on credit availability, employment rate, GDP, all this fun stuff. But that's only with 20% of my money. The majority of my money is in the stock market, the broad stock market, SWA, XMMS. That's never going to change, and that's always going to be the backbone of my strategy. So yes, you can technically beat the market, but I don't recommend doing that with more than, at the maximum, 40% of your portfolio. And for most people, I actually recommend they stick to a 95% global portfolio, boring and predictable. And the second thing that goes with this point is stop trying to time the market. So don't beat the market and don't time the market. And I think that between the two, this is actually even the more important one, because timing, you can, if you know what indicators to look for, you can take a protective edge, edge against what you think could be the next phase of the economic cycle, let's say. So if you know that inflation could go up next, you want to invest in commodities because commodities go up with inflation, or like real estate, REITs, etc. What is extremely hard to do, even for the best and most seasoned investors, active investors even, is timing the market correctly. So knowing when to enter, when to exit, trying to time the dip, to buy, and the peak to sell, etc. I would say with that, don't do it. Like, just don't do it. Yes, when you think is approximately the right time, just buy. Let's say if you've noticed like a trend that you want to partake in, just buy it then. When you've had enough gains, that you would be happy with, just exit, like sell and exit, right? Don't wait to optimize for the best, highest peak ever possible, and then that goes nowhere. So time in the market is always going to be better than timing the market. And what that means is being consistent, investing day in and day out, rain or shine, is going to be much more fruitful, and the results are going to be much better than you trying to time the market. Another point is the usage of debt. Now, what most personal finance books will tell you is that debt is not a bad thing if used correctly. There's good debt and there's bad debt. And you should try to always use debt as a tool, as a leverage, because this is what it is. At the end of the day, it's allowing you to use money today that you don't have and paying it back later, to make an investment now, and kind of tying less of your current capital in one investment, but like diversifying more. And this is exactly the functioning of mortgages. Maybe you could afford a house outright, 150k house outright, let's say, but is that really the best way of using your money? No, because what if the value of the house collapses? You've lost all your 150k invested, whereas if you only put 30k, let's say, in the rest your mortgage, then you have the other 120k to play with and invest in, for example, the stock market, and things like these. So this is what good debt looks like, debt that is used to make you more money, as a leverage tool to make you more money down the line. Bad debt is high interest debt, consumer debt, credit card debt, all these type of things. This is all bucketed together. This is bad debt. It's debt that is not making you money. And this is what you want to ask yourself whenever you even consider thinking about taking a loan and taking debt on. Is it going to bring me more money down the line? Is this allowing me to maybe buy? So we go back to the ownership point earlier in the video. Or is there something that is going to weigh me down, So it's imperative that you make the distinction for yourself. One other super important key point is that your career is your best investment in your 20s and 30s. The amount of money that you're going to be making in these crucial 20 years of your life is going to be so exponentially important to what you're able to do later. And I'll see if I can find it, but there's so many graphs that show the difference in, investing even like for, 200, 300 pounds per month when you're 20, let's say from 20 to 30, right? As opposed to starting to catch up. And so someone that only starts investing when they're 40, and maybe they invest like 2,000, 3,000 pounds, but because of the loss of the compounding effect, they actually end up worse off than the person that invested way less, but earlier on in life because of the compounding effect. So this is why you want to try and invest as much as possible in your career between your 20s and 30s to really exponentially increase your earning power, and then being able to invest more and reaching that financial freedom earlier in your life. And last but not least, something that comes from a lot of personal finance books is that ultimately investing, good investing, being a good investor, really comes down to patience and willingness to do the boring things consistently and to delay gratification. Are you willing to spend less money today and put it in the stock market for maybe one less month or a year even that you need to work later down the line, so to anticipate your retirement later down the line? Are you willing to? This is something that all investors need to ask themselves, and the muscle that they need to flex, because the answer should be yes, you should be willing to, because ultimately investing, you really start to reap the benefits of investing in the long term, the more you stay invested and the longer you play the game. So with that being said, consistency pays off more than smart bets or more than research that you could do. And yeah, just keep things simple, enjoy your finances, see them as a tool to freedom. And with that being said, I'll see you next time. Bye.